Sir, would you please tell us your full name and your place of employment?
My name is William H. Schwob, Jr. I'm also known as Ward, and I work at the Florida Department of Law Enforcement at the Tallahassee Regional Crime Laboratory in Tallahassee.
And sir, how long have you been associated with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
Approximately 10 years.
And what capacity do you currently work for the Department of Law Enforcement?
I work as a crime laboratory analyst in the crime scene section.
Were you working in that capacity on January the 14th, 1991?
Yes, sir.
All right, sir. And can you tell us a little bit about what some of your duties are and what they have been as of January 14th, 1991, and your job-related duties?
Okay, I'm primarily responsible for processing crime scenes, or the areas where crimes occurred, for some of the local agencies up in the Tallahassee region. Additionally, we can be called to any part of the state to render assistance to the local agencies in the processing of crime scenes.
And did you in fact conduct a search pursuant to a search warrant on January 14th, 1991?
Yes, sir, I did.
And can you tell ladies and gentlemen of the jury what your duties were that day and how that search was conducted?
Okay, that search, the search was of a storage unit at 1104 North Nova Road. I was responsible for seizing the items within the storage unit, doing a complete inventory and documenting that seizure.
All right, sir, may I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
So let me show you what have been now marked for identification purposes. It's double K and double J identification. Let me ask you if you're able to recognize those photographs.
Yes, sir, I can recognize these.
If so, how are you able to recognize them and when were they taken?
These were taken prior to our opening the storage unit. One photograph, number JJ, actually has me in the picture. The other photograph shows the outside of the actual locker itself prior to our opening it.
Are you able to recognize any of the other individuals you described in the picture, if there are anyone else?
Yes, sir. There are two other persons within the picture. I recognize one holding a video camera as being Larry Horzepa of Volusia County.
All right, sir. Do you recognize the other individual who came?
I believe it's kind of hard to see, but I believe it's Bernie Busher of Volusia County also.
Also a deputy?
Yes, sir.
Did they assist you in conducting the search of the storage unit you described?
Yes, sir, they did.
At this time, Your Honor, the state would also state JJ, KK as evidence.
Your Honor, we have an opportunity to view the photographs.
Yes, indeed.
Your Honor, at this time, we object on the basis of relevant.
See the item. Objection overruled. That data received and marked down by the proper number.
The state's exhibit 24 and 25.
Mr. Schwob, when you arrived at the storage unit, can you describe the condition of the door before, as you arrived on the outside of the unit?
Well, the very outside of the unit, there was a doorway entering a hallway. On one side of the hallway was a series of storage bins, smaller bins. The particular storage unit we were in, or locker we were interested in, was number 43J. It had a wooden door which was secured by a padlock and hasp, and the padlock was locked.
Was the door secured to that storage bin?
Yes, sir.
And did there come a point in time where you opened the door and then began collection and inventory of the contents that were within it?
That's correct.
And the state's 25 in evidence a fair and accurate representation of the condition of the door marked G as you saw it on that day.
Yes, sir, it is.
And states 24 in evidence, is that a fair and accurate representation of the storage area that you arrived at to conduct the search of 43G, the storage area within?
Yes, sir, it is.
If I may approach the witness again?
Yes, sir.
So let me show you what has been marked for identification purposes, states why and evidence. After you're able to recognize that item.
Yes, sir, I can.
So can you tell, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, where that object was recovered?
This object was recovered from within the storage unit, within a container within the storage unit. This was in a brown Borden milk crate.
Now, the milk crate that you described, I have a picture in my mind of what a milk crate would be. Is this something that has grates that you can kind of see into the contents?
Yes, sir.
Were we able to see this object from a viewing before you had to dishevel anything in there?
Yes, sir. It was visible from the top of the crate.
And what, if anything, did you do with States Y for identification after you obtained it?
This particular item was included on my inventory list. At that point, it gets turned over to individual people within the lab for specific processing.
And based upon your knowledge of working within the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, can you tell if there was any type of processing done to States Y for identification?
Yes, sir. It appears that processing was done to obtain latent fingerprints off of it.
How are you able to make that determination based upon your experience and knowledge in working crime scenes and within your department?
Well, there's a gray powder residue on there which indicates that it's either gray fingerprint powder or a superglue process. Additionally, I recognize the initials of one of our latent print examiners on the item.
Now, did you conduct a further search of the storage bin on January 14th and recover other articles?
Yes, sir.
Now, let me direct your attention in particular, sir, to exhibit number 5 on your report. All right, sir. Can you describe to the jury with regard to any items of personal identification within a brown wallet that you recovered that day, if you remember?
Yes, sir. The whole container itself was a white and gray igloo cooler. Within the cooler, there was a yellow plastic bag. And within that plastic bag was a brown wallet. Within the wallet were several items or personal items of identification, such as a driver's license receipt, a Florida driver's license, and numerous other items with names on them.
Please, the court, may I approach? Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, sir.
This item has my case number, which I wrote on it, indicating when I sealed the bag up.
Your record reflects that number 5 in fact has already told the court before the jury with counsel being present.
Go ahead.
You can find the closing investigation. The records reflect, Your Honor, the counsel and I have stipulated the opening of this bag at this time, and I'm going to cut through the evidence table. The exhibit number 5, marked by Mr. Schwob, and open court, and place them into a new plastic bag and return the remainder of the contents back into the evidence bag. Your Honor, while counsel was inspecting the contents, the records reflect that we moved from Mr. Schwab's exhibit number 5, which has been previously marked, and unfortunately has not been marked as written. He has removed what would be, I believe, a plastic garbage bag. Would you like to open it this time?
Yes, sir.
If I may, just while council is doing that, you recognize the man, sir?
Yes, I do.
Was this taken by you on January 14th, part of the search process?
Mr. Holmes.
The record will reflect that now opening the bag on the report and ask the witness to remove the article from it. Can you take that as a motion? Just so the record will be clear, I'm not placing the items I previously described and having personal identification into a new plastic container, having been removed from the exhibit. That the witness is identified as having been removed from storage bin 43G on January 14th of this year, 1991.
You won't be marked for identification?
Yes, sir.
And they are LL.
So we ask also, Your Honor, that the composite exhibits be marked at this time. As states MM at this time, Your Honor, for identification purposes. And also let the record reflect that this article was removed at the same time as coming from a plastic bag contained within exhibit number 5 of Mr. Schwob's exhibit. That's his exhibit. All right, sir. I mentioned you.
For identification, let that be marked.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor. Schwob, let me show you what has been previously marked in open court for identification. It states double L for identification. I asked you if you were able to recognize the contents of states double L for identification.
Yes, sir, I recognize these.
And how are you able to recognize them, sir?
They match the exhibit descriptions, which I did when completing my inventory. The one particular item has the same social security numbers and the same name as what I recorded when I did my inventory.
All right, so were those items removed from the locked storage bin by you?
Yes, sir.
On January the 14th, 1991?
Yes, sir.
So let me show you with remark that states double M for identification as a composite exhibit. I ask you if you can inspect that item and tell me whether or not you recognize it. And you can feel free to open the bag, sir. To the court commission.
Yes, sir, I recognize this. This is the wallet which I referred to in my inventory list.
All right, so were the contents of that wallet, were there any objects?
Yes, sir.
And what, if any, objects were contained therein?
Within the wallet itself, there's a Florida driver's license.
Can you describe for the court the name of the, on the driver's license?
Objection, relevance to the order.
It's not in evidence yet, is it?
No, it is not yet. I'll walk around.
Don't answer the question.
Do you recognize the object that you removed from the wallet that was found within the storage shed?
Yes, I do.
Okay, sir. At this time, Your Honor, the state would offer states double L and double M for identification purposes as state's evidence.
Your Honor, we would object on the basis of relevance.
That the item be received and marked as by the proper.
Thank you, Your Honor.
At this stage, exhibit 26 and 27.
Your Honor, may these objects be published to the jury at this time?
The item may be published.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, for the record, I reflect that I'm start with the first alternate unit to the right, and then to the left of the back road. Your Honor, may I also publish the photographs?
Yes, sir.
Where do you want? Over here?
Right.
Is it, Mr. Schwob or Schwob?
Schwob.
Schwob, okay. Mr. Schwob, I only have a couple of questions for you. The items which were just published to the jury by Mr. DeMoore, those items were found in the brown leather wallet, is that correct?
Some of the items were, yes.
There was another item that was not shown to the jury that was found in that brown leather wallet, was there not?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. If counsel wishes to publish anything within this exhibit, he has had ample opportunity to do so.
Objection to the speaking objection, Your Honor.
It's overruled, but I mean, your objection is overruled about speaking. I agree with you. If he wants to display something, he's perfectly welcome to go get the bag.
My objection, Judge, is the attempt to say that the state is trying to hide something. It's
Sorry,
here,
no
the jury's
further
off to say
necessary.
anything
No
they
further
want.
necessary. It's okay. It's just kind of. Go ahead.
Your Honor, may I approach prison?
No. Oh, witness, yes. You might.
Oh, no, sir, I meant
About
you.
me.
Your Honor, I just need a clarification on the ruling.
Sure.
Am I permitted to discuss the item which I am speaking of without any further reference to Mr.
Witness, how
DeMoore?
about talking with the attorney?
No, sir, I mean to ask further questions of the witness.
Certainly you can.
As I was stating, there was another item in that wallet, was there not?
Yes, sir.
And that item was in fact the driver's license receipt for Tyra Moore, correct?
That's correct.
I have no further questions.
Please, the court will offer the driver's license certificate of Tyra Moore. Counsel is welcome to do it if you'd like it. It's part of our case.
Your Honor, I object to that.
Your Honor,
You're offering it in evidence, lay the proper predicate for it.
I'll do some digging, if I may, Judge, again in a bit. Counsel, is there any other items you'd like?
Your Honor, I object to Mr. DeMoore continuing at this time.
He has the right to redirect, and I'm giving him that opportunity.
I'm objecting to his comments to me.
All right, that's your remarks to the court.
Yes, sir. Your Honor, may the witness come down again?
If you please step over.
I'm sorry, sir, I've got it right here. Let's mark this as probably. Let me show you, sir, what's been marked with states Exhibit Double N. Ask you if you're able to recognize that document. Excuse me, those documents and the contents in the bag.
Your Honor, I object to anything other than the document on the top of that bag. Anything else is beyond the scope of cross.
Right. You want to take the item out, you refer to
All right, sir. Judge, please the court not to waste the court's time. I'll have no further questions as witness subject to being allowed to recall him.
No,
That's fine, Judge.
First time, Judge, state recall from Agent Ward Schwob.
May.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, just for the record, would you tell the jury your name, please?
William H. Schwob, Jr.
Sir, let me show, I'm sorry.
I'm also known as Ward.
I'm sorry I keep calling you Ward. That's how I know you. Would you tell us if you were able to recognize state's double N for identification?
Yes, sir, I am.
And where did you obtain the contents of state's double N for identification?
Some of the contents of this plastic bag were within the yellow plastic bag. Some other items were within the wallet, also in the yellow plastic bag.
Now, there's been some discussion in court about a registration in the name of Tyree Moore. You see that within state's double N for identification? That's the registration. Let me make sure I'm describing it. I mean, it looks like an application for an operator's driver's license.
Yes, sir.
All right, so where was that found?
That was found within the wallet.
And that was found where the driver's license of the individual known as Blahovic was also found?
Yes, sir.
All right, sir. Now, the other objects that are contained within state's double N, where were they located?
They were all within the yellow plastic bag.
And did it, if you would, sir, of course, we now allow him to open that up so he can sort through.
Yes, sir.
That's perfect. Sir, if you would please inspect those items. Doesn't matter what you need.
Yes, sir.
Let me just ask you, sir, the items are contained in this big double-entry identification. In fact, those items are various personal
Objection
documents.
as to relevance, Your Honor.
Let me see the items. Let's restrict our conversations to this item right here.
Judge, I just attempt to show the relevancy of those items as in context.
The others,
Yes, sir, just by question.
let's, for this purposes here, stay with this one here.
All right, sir. The one object found within the brown purse that had the driver's license with a picture of the defendant on it with the name.
Objection, Your Honor.
Objection overruled, go ahead.
Also had the pink slip for the driver's license with the name of Tyree Moore, did it not?
That's correct.
And there were other items of personal identification of other named people also found.
Objection,
in the
Your Honor, relevance.
Objection overruled.
Isn't that true, sir?
Could you repeat the question?
There were other items of other personal identification and background of other individuals also found during your search of that bin, that container.
That's correct.
They were all within the locked, sealed storage bin
Yes, sir.
when you made the inventory and search.
That's correct.
Thank you, sir. I have none.
Are you offering this?
No, sir, but if the defense counsel wishes to.
All right.
Running high recalls.
Certainly. Thank you.
The document containing the name Tyree Moore that was found in the wallet, was it not?
That's correct.
The other items which Mr. Moore alluded were not found in that wallet, were they?
The paperwork itself
Yes, sir.
or the license, the operator's registration?
I'm speaking of Mr. Moore's comment about the other individuals.
Yes, that was not found in the wallet. Those
Thank you.
items were not.
Any further?
No, sir.
May the witness be excused.
Subject to further recall, Your
All
Honor.
right, sir, if you will,
You have a seat, Your Honor.
inquire.
Sir, would you state your name, your profession, and your education background?
Donald Champagne. I was employed by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement yesterday as a firearms examiner. I'm presently retired. I was with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for 23 and a half years.
Did you retire in good standing?
Yes, sir.
Sir, could you tell the jury what you've done for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement over the years?
As a firearms examiner, I was required to examine bullets and cartridge cases to determine whether or not they were fired from and in a particular weapon. I was required to examine clothing and tissue to determine the distance at which a shot is fired. I was required to examine weapons for their mechanical and functioning condition, among other things.
All right, sir. And can you tell the judge and the jury what your education, training, and background is in the field of firearms examination and comparison.
Prior to coming to Florida, I was a member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police for 20 years. 15 of those years were spent as a firearms examiner. During that time, I took an intensive 2-year training course in firearms identification, after which I wrote qualifying examinations on the subject.
Have you been qualified as an expert in firearms examination in the criminal courts of the state of Florida?
Yes, sir.
And have you testified as an expert?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the court how many times?
I can't tell you how many times in the state of Florida, but altogether it's something over 730 times.
Your Honor, please, we would offer Mr. Champagne, expert in the fields of firearms identification and comparison.
You may order.
No, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, do you have another specialty field in which you've been qualified as an expert which may be relevant to your testimony here today?
Yes, part of my work included tool mark comparisons, that is, trying to identify a particular tool with marks that it may have made at various crime scenes, also serial number restorations.
All right, sir. And have you been trained in that field and also qualified as an expert to testify in court? And if so, answer each of those questions, I guess, separately.
Yes, sir, for all the questions.
Could you tell just briefly what your background and training was in the field of tool mark identification?
It paralleled firearms identification. Firearms identification is a specialized form of tool mark identification. The same basic principles are involved in the process, except that you have different tools involved where the firearm is a tool that marks the cartridge components that pass through it. In tool marks, we have other kinds of tools like wire cutters or chisels, screwdrivers. They also make individual identifying marks on the objects that they're used on. And in that way, you have parallel as far as tool marks and
Your Honor, I
firearms.
also asked the court to recognize Mr. Champagne as an expert in that specialty.
You may order.
No, Your Honor.
You know, may I have just a moment? Just a moment. May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Sir, did you have occasion to apply your training and skills in the field of firearm identification, comparison, and tool mark comparisons in the homicide case involving Mr. Mallory?
Yes, sir. Firearms identification.
Right, sir. I would ask you to look at State's Exhibit 19-1, 2, and 3, and ask if you recognize those photographs, those items already in evidence.
I haven't seen these photographs before, but they depict a weapon that I did do some examination on.
All right, sir. I would ask you to look at State's Exhibit 20 and ask if you recognize it.
Yes, sir. This is a 22 caliber 9-shot high standard .9 revolver that has my tag on it with my file number, initials, and date on it. The date I received it was January the 22nd, 1991. The weapon also has my exhibit number and my initials on it.
All right, sir. And can you tell the jury whether or not the pistol which you've just looked at, number 20, appears to be the same pistol identified by the pictures of the rusty pistol 21, 1 through 3?
Yes, it appears to be.
And that's the way the pistol appeared when you received it, and then you cleaned it up.
Yes, sir.
All right, sir. Did you remove anything from the pistol? And can you tell the jury how you went about first cleaning up its exterior and then whether or not you determined it was loaded?
Well, the weapon was very badly rusted and deteriorated when I received it. Of course, it took a lot of soaking in solvents and physically cleaning the weapon, using penetrating oil to get the mechanism to work, and opening the cylinder of the weapon. And I found that it was loaded with 7 unfired cartridges.
Sir, I would ask you to look at State's Exhibit double E for identification and ask if you can identify the contents.
Yes, sir, this is a plastic bag that has my file number on it. I have a notation on the bag, removed from revolver by DEC, which is me. Those are my initials.
And you removed those cartridges from the revolver about which you just specified and identified?
Yes, sir, there's 7 of them here.
All right, sir, can you tell about the operation of that pistol, the loaded capacity and the type of projectile it's designed to expel, and the type of cartridge and then?
Well, this is known as a double 9, which means that it holds 9 cartridges in the cylinder. It's also known as a convertible. You can replace this cylinder with another one that will also fire 22 Winchester Magnum cartridges. The cartridges that we have here are 22 long rifle caliber cartridges.
Can you tell the jury a little bit about the 22 long rifle cartridges? Their characteristic?
Well, they're a small caliber cartridge that's used primarily for target shooting and plinking, and can be used on small animals.
All right, sir. In your experience testifying in forensic cases, is that type of weapon ever used to kill people?
Objection, Your Honor.
Very expensive, that.
Yes, it's one of the types of pistols that are used most often.
One of the type pistols used most often?
I'm sorry, I shouldn't say type pistol, but the caliber of weapon is the type that is most often used. 22 caliber.
22 caliber kills most people.
Objection, Your Honor.
Yeah, in my experience, yes, they do kill a lot of people.
All right, sir. Did you have occasion to receive any spent cartridges in connection with this case? And I'd ask you to look at State's Exhibit number 21.
This is a plastic bag that has my file number, initials, and date on it, and the date is January the 25th, 1991, and it's noted on here that it's submission number 7.
All right, so we've opened it from the side already. Previous witness testified about the containers and the contents.
This contains 4 film holders, each of which has my initials on it and the file number. Each film holder contains 1 fired bullet in 22 caliber.
All right, sir. Would you go back to the unfired cartridges first and tell the jury all identifiable characteristics in nomenclature of those cartridges?
These are known as CCI brand, 22 caliber, hollow point, Stinger cartridges.
And do you know the approximate range of those cartridges?
Well, they're dangerous within a mile.
And with regard to the fired projectiles, just the lead, did you tell the jury the characteristics as they may compare to the unfired with regard to make, model, or manufacturer?
They're the same brand and the same type of bullet.
Use the nomenclature was a PPI Stinger?
CCI.
CCI Stinger.
Yes.
All right, sir.
Hollow points.
All right. Did you attempt, when you say a hollow point, can you describe to me what that indicates?
There's a cavity in the nose of the bullet, and this facilitates the expansion of the bullet so that it, when it strikes something harder than itself, it will increase its diameter. It makes it more effective.
You say more effective, you mean more deadly if fired at a living object?
Objection, Your Honor, meeting overruled.
Yes.
And would it make a greater wound in living tissue than a solid one?
It could, depending on what it strikes. So some of them will go into soft tissue and not expand. If they strike bone, they will. It's variable.
Did you have occasion to examine the spent projectiles to determine if they exhibited any characteristics indicating the type and make and or other identifiable characteristic of firearms that they may have been fired from?
Yes, I looked at these and compared them one with the other on a comparison microscope. And comparison microscope is simply two compound microscopes mounted on under a prismatic bridge with a binocular eyepiece, and looking into the eyepiece you see the left-hand side of the left field and you see the right-hand side of the right field. We take two physically separated objects and mount them on the stages and bring them together optically through the prismatic bridge. So the first examination I conducted was trying to determine the make and type of weapon involved, and in doing that I compared each one of the fired bullets, the four, one with the other. I found that I could not identify one with the other because of extensive damage to each of the bullets and poor engraving on each of the bullets. I did find that they were fired from a weapon rifled with 6 grooves with a right-hand twist. Now that is what we call class characteristics, and they are determined by the manufacturer. He has control over them. When a manufacturer makes a weapon, he determines how many lands and grooves he's going to have in the barrel, and the dimensions of those lands and grooves, and the direction of twist. So that I was able to determine that they were all fired from a 6 right weapon. I could not tell whether it was a revolver or a pistol or a rifle at that time.
All right, sir. Were you able to determine anything with regard to the comparison between each of the 4? Did each of the 4 appear to have been fired from the same or a similar firearm?
They were fired from a weapon having the same class characteristics of rifling, but I could not identify one with the other.
And this was because they were deformed or expanded?
There was damage to the bullets, and they were poorly engraved to start with.
Is that unusual with 22 caliber projectile?
No, it isn't.
Your Honor, please, we would offer the live projectiles were taken from the pistol. Yeah, show them, counsel. Yes, sir. That would be exhibits double E for identification. Counsel?
No objection.
That the items be received and marked and evidenced by their proper number.
States exhibit number 28.
We have no further questions for the witness, Your Honor. Thank you.
You may inquire, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please report to counsel.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You testified that 22s kill a lot of people on direct examination. Is that right?
In my experience, yeah.
Okay, 38s kill a lot of people too, don't they?
Yes, they do.
45s kill a lot of people.
Yes.
9mm kill a lot of people.
Yes.
AK-47s kill a lot of people.
22 caliber bullets probably kill more than any other.
Okay,
Caliber.
more common,
Yes.
more commonly used.
They're a cheaper weapon and more easily obtained in that respect.
And 22s are used for target shooting,
Yes.
killing small animals.
Oh, yes.
I understand your testimony. Your conclusion was that the bullets that were submitted to you were little or no identification value. Is that correct?
Yes.
And therefore, you could not determine what weapon they were fired from.
No, that's not correct. That's, in examining the bullets themselves, I was not able to identify them one with the other as having come from the same weapon. But the class characteristics of rifling were the same.
Okay, how many weapons are in a particular class? You defined that a moment ago.
Well, 6 screws of the right-hand twist is a fairly popular style of rifling, and there are many weapons, different brands, not just this particular brand, that have basically the same class characteristics of rifling.
You can't say with any degree of scientific certainty that these bullets were fired from the weapon that was submitted to you, isn't that correct?
That's correct, yes.
One moment, please.
Yes, sir.
That's all. Thank you very much.
Mr. Tanner,
No further questions, Your Honor.
you need to keep the witness from maybe discharged.
May he be discharged, Your Honor. I understand that he and his wife were traveling. Retirement began last night.
The objection. No way to argue.
Thank you.
You are under the rule that you're not to discuss your testimony with me.
Yes, sir.
So your next witness, or
Your Honor, may we publish some evidence? That takes quite a while usually, and that would take about 15 minutes, and it may take us up to lunch hour. Thank you.
publish what?
Well, there have been quite a few items that I have introduced to witnesses that I would like to have published. The photographs at the bridge, the rusty firearm, and Matt's pistol itself.
Haven't those been viewed by the jury?
No, sir, I did not
All
follow.
right. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir.
Counsel, are we at an argument stage now?
No, sir, we are quite away from that.
All right, well, do we have another witness available for afternoon? So we can run the jury to about 12:30 and let the residents hear out.
We have one en route from Orlando, and I don't know whether she has arrived yet. With the state cutback in funds, they didn't have a state car for her this morning. Most of my staff got here.
The Warriors have never been a furnished car. Go ahead and publish the items.
Thank you, Jim.
Keep an eye out for her to make sure that she arrives. I'd like to take one more witness before we recess.
Yes, sir. While we're publishing, I'll step into the hall if I may.
Komar.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would Your Honor consider asking the jury to look up for just a moment? We just have one question.
All right. But if you can stop your view for just a moment.
Mr. Champagne, with regard to the class characteristics in the pistol which you examined, which is in evidence, how did that compare to the class characteristics of the fired projectiles?
They were the same. I failed to mention that, but they are the same.
I failed to ask. Thank you.
Counsel, you may inquire.
Just one question, but there are other brands within that class, is that true?
Oh, yes, yes.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Mr. Champagne.
Anything further?
No, Your Honor, sorry.
Can you go for real?
Thank you.
All right. As soon as the jury has completed their review, we will be in recess. Ms. Walters, are you ready to make your speech?
I don't think it was.
All right. I'll give it to you again.
Please report. Ma'am, would you state your name, please, your occupation, and your training and experience that qualify you for that occupation?
Susan M. Komar, Komar. I'm a crime laboratory analyst with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement located in Orlando. I began my training in firearms and tool marks identification with the state of Illinois in September of 1967. I underwent a period of training under the supervision of Joseph D. Nickel. The training included reading materials, examination of firearms, fired bullets, cartridge cases, shotgun shells, other ammunition components, examination and comparison of these items to determine whether or not they were fired from a particular firearm in question. Training also involved the examination of bullet holes, clothing items, to determine whether or not gunshot residue patterns were present on the clothing. If such a pattern is present, a determination of the distance at which the shot was fired and approximation of the distance can be made by reproducing that type of pattern. I remained with the Illinois Bureau of Identification for 10.5 years. I then joined the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, where I stayed for 3 years, again doing firearms and tool marks examinations. I've been here with Florida for 2.5 years.
Have you ever been qualified to testify as an expert, as a crime lab analyst, and particularly in the field of firearms and tool mark identification with its contemporaneous field of study concerning and dealing with gunshot residue on clothing from a fire weapon?
Yes.
How many times have you been qualified to testify as such an expert?
Approximately 135 times.
Your Honor, please, we would tender the witness as an expert in her field.
Counsel, you may inquire.
No.
No question. You may proceed, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did you have occasion to examine clothing and perform tests in connection with the investigation of the homicide of Richard Mallory?
Yes, I did.
Right. And can you tell this jury first, just step by step, what you did with regard to clothing and any analyses and conclusions you reached?
I examined a short-sleeved sports shirt, which had a considerable amount of decomposition fluid soaked into the material. I was examining the shirt for the presence of possible bullet holes, and then examining it to determine whether or not there were any gunpowder patterns present around any holes that I might find. In examining the shirt, I found that there were multiple holes in the front area of the shirt, 2 in the right collar, 2 in the chest, 2 under the right arm, and 1 in the back of the right arm. Most of these holes, that being the 1 in the collar, the 2 in the chest, and the 1 on the back of the right sleeve, each of those holes had a few powder particles around them. I received a firearm sometime later, which I then examined to determine that it was safe to fire. I fired distances using this firearm. I fired specific distances, 1 foot, 2 feet, 3 feet, observing the target material to determine at which point powder particles would no longer be deposited on the target material. I found that when I was out to 6 feet from the muzzle of the gun to the target material, gunpowder residues were no longer found on the target material. From these tests in comparison to the shirt, I was able to determine that the shots fired into the shirt were fired at a distance less than 6 feet.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, sir.
First, I would, Ms. Komar, ask you to look at State's Exhibit 23 and ask if you recognize the shirt. If you,
Yes, it has my initials and our case number.
is this the shirt about which you just testified?
Yes, it is.
And I would ask you to look at State's Exhibit 20. Ask if you will examine that firearm, please.
It also has our case number and my initials on the barrel.
Is that the firearm about which you just testified?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, may I ask Mr. Harmon to come forward and be used as a prop for demonstrative evidence purposes?
All right.
And may we relocate a chair to the center of the courtroom in front of the jury?
Sir.
Mr. Harmon, would you mind?
No objection if it's okay with Mr. Harmon.
Yes, maybe we can step down. And may Mr. Harmon remove his coat?
Yes.
Mrs. Komar, can you, let me see, I don't want to, let's maybe turn this a little bit so we don't confuse backwards to some of the jurors. If you can, if you demonstrate with you standing behind the subject, and you can amply reach everything that you need to testify that way, would you show, for the jury's benefit, on Mr. Harmon, where you found bullet holes in Mr. Mallory's shirt?
There was a hole here at the shoulder and collar seam. There was another hole forward of that in the collar. There was a hole in the back of the right arm and under the right arm, two holes adjoining each other. There was a hole in the right chest and a hole in the left chest.
All right, with regard to the first, the two holes in the collar, did they appear to be made by one bullet?
Yeah, they appeared to be.
Objection, Your Honor, unless it's to a reasonable degree of certainty.
Lay further credit. Thanks, sir.
All of the questions I'm about to ask you, would you assume that I have the predicate, in fact, will you take into account the predicate that this must be within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty in the field of crime analysis and residue and bullet hole examination? What do you call that? There has to be a shorter word for that.
I'm not sure.
All right. Would you let your answers be each based upon the accepted standards in your specialty field within a reasonable degree of certainty?
Objection takes field, Your Honor.
Objection overruled. Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay. Do you have an opinion as to whether or not more than one projectile went through the collar?
The two holes were related. The one had a ring of lead around it, which is consistent with bullet passage. The hole in the collar had powder residues, which is also consistent with bullet passage.
Thanks. And in your opinion, those two holes were made by one or two projectiles, correct?
Yes.
What about the next set of holes that you saw?
The hole in the back of the right arm had powder particles around it. The two holes under the arm had the lead residue, which is consistent with the passage of a bullet.
And would that indicate more than one projectile for the holes going through the arm and up under the armpit?
They could be related. It could be that one projectile passed through, or it could be that more than one was fired.
Okay. And with regard to the holes you located on the front of the shirt?
The front of the shirt, both holes had gunpowder residues, consistent again with the passage of a bullet in each of the holes.
And is it your testimony that all 6 holes about which you testified were placed in the shirt by a bullet fired from a firearm?
Well, it would be a total of 7 holes. Possibly fewer than 7 shots.
Okay. But in any event, each of the holes by which you testified resulted from a bullet being fired through the shirt.
That's correct.
If the shirt which you examined had been worn by a human being, a male, in the normal fashion that which such a shirt would be worn, can you show the jury the approximate position that the target individual would be in as the bullets struck him?
Objection, speculative, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Assuming that the individual was sitting in a car behind the steering wheel.
Your Honor, objection, assuming.
Objection overruled. Answer the question if you can.
This hole in the back of the sleeve would be consistent with an entrance hole, which would mean that the muzzle of the gun would have to be aimed at the back side of the shirt here.
Let me slow you down. With regard to arm position, with regard to the exit under the armpit, is there anything that may reasonably be inferred from your investigation as to the position of the arm?
Only that the muzzle would be on the back side of the arm.
Okay.
The 2 chest holes, again, had gunpowder residues, so that the muzzle would have to be directed toward the holes in the front of the shirt. The collar, the outer surface of the collar had the gunpowder residues, and again, the muzzle would have to be directed at the collar in this area.
All right. If you would, take Mr. Harmon as he sits, and based upon your investigation, how far away and in which direction the shooter had been if Mr. Mallory were sitting as Mr. Harmon is now?
Well, the arm shot would be from this side, traveling in that direction.
All right. And what about the next shot?
The next shot, again, the entrance is here, so somewhere in this area, again, less than 6 feet away. And then the same also.
Mr. Harmon, would you turn towards her? And again, assume the position of the shooter. From your examination, could those shots have been fired at the place you found them if Mr. Mallory was facing the shooter in the direction he is now?
The chest shots could have been fired from this position. The arm shot could not.
And what about the next shot?
The next shot, maybe.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon. Maybe the witness stand down, back to the, and Mr. Harmon stand down.
Steve, you turn, stand ready.
Your Honor, may I use the easel momentarily?
Yes, indeed. Takes 2.
Your Honor, may the witness stand down and approach the easel?
Yes.
Ms. Komar, again, remembering we got jurors to the would you show the jury on Mr. Mallory's shirt where the bullet holes about which you testified were found?
The left chest hole is here. The right chest hole is here. The two holes, the burning holes in the armpit are here and here. The collar hole is here. Second hole in the collar at the seam line is here. And the back of the right arm hole is here.
Thank you, ma'am. The witness return to the stand, Your Honor. No further questions.
Counsel, you may inquire.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Tanner just had you do a demonstration, or actually had one of his assistants do a demonstration. And he asked you to assume that the individual was sitting down as if sitting in the front seat of a car. You, in fact, have no idea whether the individual was sitting in the front seat of a car, do you?
That's correct.
You cannot determine from your analysis whether or not that was the case.
That's correct.
You don't know whether he was standing, whether he was moving, or anything else except that he was within 6 feet of the person who fired that weapon.
That's correct.
I don't have any other questions.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
And then keep the witness from me to be excused.
She may be excused. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Komar.
You may stand down in the park. You are under the rule, ma'am, that is not to discuss your testimony. The case is concluded.